So we're talking about Dave Chappelle again. Are you surprised? I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I like Dave Chappelle. He seems like he's a reasonably good guy. This past week though has not been a great week. This last month really has not been a great month for comedy at all. With people still trying to figure out, exactly what to make of the Chris Rock and Will Smith situation. Geez, now we got another one just like it. This past week, Dave Chappelle was performing at the Hollywood Bowl as part of the Netflix is a Joke festival, and he was rushed on stage by, this time not by another celebrity, but by just some random deranged fan out of the crowd. And so while Dave Chappelle was trying to leave the stage, this guy jumps up on stage and tackles him. And then when security goes and peels him off, takes him into the back. Reportedly, sounds like they beat the living shit out of the guy, which I would say that, yeah, he kind of deserved it. It turns out that he had a weapon on him. He had this weird little replica gun with a knife in it, which, I don't know, to me that seems really pointless. Don't they tell you not to bring a knife to a gunfight? Making a knife look like a gun seems like we're kind of mixing the messages here. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But anyway, Jamie Foxx, of all people, jumped on stage and helped get this guy off of Dave Chappelle, and then they took him to the back, and then, the guy wound up having to go to the hospital with at least one, probably two broken arms. Can't say that I feel real sorry for the guy. And the thing, we're still not really at a stage right now where we're entirely clear on what the attack was about. A lot of people right off the bat assume that it had something to do with, some of the comments that Dave Chappelle has made about trans people in the past. And apparently that was a conclusion that Chappelle himself drew because, after he got back up, after this guy, had tackled him, he got the microphone and said, it was a trans man. Which, in these kind of tribulations between Dave Chappelle and the trans community over the last little while, I have at times, been on Dave Chappelle's side and saying it's like, he's just telling jokes. But this time I think I view it a little bit differently. And it kind of surprises me that really nobody else is talking about this in particular, but it was probably one of the most irresponsible things that Dave Chappelle could have done, to come back and say that this guy was a trans man, and then in fact it turns out that no, this guy wasn't a trans man. He was just some lunatic. Apparently this guy said that he had trans friends and that was why he was doing this. But apparently this guy had written a rap song several years ago about wanting to assault Dave Chappelle. So it kind of seems like he was looking for an excuse to do it. And no, I don't really buy this thing about him having trans friends being an excuse to go and assault Dave Chappelle. While I do think that there's a pretty small, pretty militant little corner of the trans community that were entirely out of line in the way that they've gone after Dave Chappelle these last few years, I think that in having done that, I think that Dave Chappelle has basically drawn a target on these people's backs. And it's run the risk of directing hostility, back at people that really don't have anything to do with what happened to. And in doing so, I think that he's run the risk of directing hostility back at people that have nothing at all to do with the thing that happened to him. I don't think that he did it maliciously, but I don't think that you have to do something like this maliciously in order for it to be wrong. I don't really think that he did it maliciously, but also I don't think that you have to do something like this maliciously, in order to be wrong to do it. I think we can safely say that Dave Chappelle being assaulted on stage isn't what his friend Daphne would have wanted. But I think that the way that he's handled it definitely would not have, definitely is not the way Daphne would have wanted it either.